Hello, and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby. Today, Tom and I, are back on with the Anti Wellness or Wankery podcast, and I'm really excited for this one because we kind of waited for part two to kind of blitz it out with some more training myths. But something that kind of occurred to me because while we were rambling as we usually do before I hit record, Tom and I were talking about a certain situation where someone was kind of just feeling lost, and then it leaked into like going to food and carbs and feeling kind of like they just had no real thing to like cling to, just lost. And this is a big thing with training and exercise. And I know I've spoken about this in an old podcast. I know definitely number 236, if you go back and listen to it, I recommend it to everyone because that's a really good one. And there's one back there somewhere called Escape the Prison Walls, if you look for that name. But when I started out lifting, as an example of this, I used to cling to competitions to keep me going, to the point where that was pretty much the only thing I had. Like I didn't have anything else outside of that, and it defined me. And I feel like when people start on this journey, they start off with good intentions. I started off with good intentions, but along the way, we can get so hyper fixated on this one thing. And I'm reading it in a book right now as well, where we get so outcome focused that the breadth and the width of our creativity, of our motivation, of just our life diminishes and it fades away. And we just have this like uni focus point. And that can be so detrimental because we put all of our identity into this one thing, as in, this is our definition of self. We don't broaden that sense of self, and it makes it really damn difficult to enjoy the journey, really damn difficult to find other meanings of progress, really damn difficult for anything, really, because exercise is the only thing then. And if you slip up, if you get injured, if you get sick, if you can't do it at the same rate that you used to do it, all of a sudden that goes back to your worth. All of a sudden you're going to look for other outlets to let go of your frustrations, to go to comfort. But like the whole reason we're doing this is to live a better life, is to show up better, is to have more confidence, to be a better mother, a better human, a better friend, to be stronger, to live longer, and not just longer, but with better health, without needing to be in a nursing home because you're unable to support your own body weight. Like, we are now 2023, 2024, 2025, moving into this new era. That was just me covering up from saying the wrong year. Shh.
No one caught it. It's fine.
2024. We are redefining what aging means. You're seeing 50-year-olds and 60-year-olds posting their lifts, beasting deadlifts, and then they mention their age and you're like, what the fuck? There's no way you're that age lifting that much. But no, we have to broaden our meaning of all of this and realize why we're doing this. Like, since when did abs become the status of anything? It's almost like someone has abs, all of a sudden, oh my God, you have abs showing. But then again, it's like a reflection of yourself and what you deem to be the most important thing in your life. Because if that's what you think is the most important thing on someone else, then that's a reflection on you. Just like if you're scared of being judged by other people, that's a reflection on you not being comfortable within yourself as well. It's like, we usually pay attention to the things we're either most self-conscious about for ourselves, we're unhappy about the most in ourselves, and the list goes on. And I'm sure Tom can agree to this, and if he does, he can mention that in the next part when he takes over. But that's why it is so important to see exercise as what it is. Weight training is there to build muscle. It's to get stronger. It's to improve your power. It's to improve your athleticism. And then cardio is there to improve your aerobic health. Lifting does that to a certain degree, but beyond that, that's kind of where zone 2 comes in. But I would argue you don't need as much as what Huberman says. Like, walking is exercise in itself. It's not cardio. And you don't like, as soon as you get a base level of cardio, it is so easy to maintain. You don't need to keep doing the same amounts to maintain that stimulus. Whereas with weight training, it's different. You need to keep forcing the muscle to a greater challenge in order for it to grow to get to where you want to be in terms of the more muscular body that you want. But all of that aside, we are going to bring up two of the most pertinent ones that we want to rant a little bit more about before we go into some shorter ones. And I felt like that was a great way to introduce this, because as soon as you see exercise for what it is, it's like use the right tool for the right job and understand how things work, which is really hard, obviously, when you're starting out. But if you get a coach, you bypass all of the sticky points that many people do. You get there faster. And it's not just getting a coach to get to some random point A, but you can then just keep them as your guiding force to keep pushing you to get better. Like, why do coaches and athletes still have coaches as coaches themselves? And as athletes who are at elite levels, why do they still have coaches? And that's because that's probably how they got to such elite levels, number one. But they have someone there as an outside voice. Athletes especially, because all of us do it. Even athletes, we can be our own biggest bottlenecks, our own biggest critics. And having that person there to guide the path, voila. Now, that was a long rant. They're not going to be that long anymore. The first one I will bring in, actually, just so Tom can take over and buttle up what I just said. HIIT training, sprint training, high intensity this, that training. And it's becoming more popular among the older ladies that listen to people saying that sprint interval training is the best thing for your hormones, which no, it's not, especially the way most people do it. And then you see people in groups saying, just add on HIIT. It's better for getting leaner and building muscle. It's better for building muscle while staying lean. It's the best thing for lean, long legs. And look at sprinters' legs. They look lean and tight and toned. You want to do that stuff, not this stuff. It's kind of crazy what goes on in there, but let's highlight the facts about HIIT training and where people go wrong and the myths that circle around.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and like, look, HIIT training can be useful. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's nothing wrong with HIIT training in and of itself. The evidence is fairly clear that HIIT training is really beneficial, but that is kind of my main issue with high intensity interval training is that a lot of the benefits that you see in the research involve participants pushing to like RPE 10. It's 100% effort throughout the effortful parts of the training, and then they relax and then they go again. And my issue is I've never seen someone in real life do HIIT training to that level of intensity for a prolonged period of time. Like, if I get someone to go on a treadmill and I ask them to run at RPE 10 for 30 seconds, rest for 30 seconds and repeat for 6 rounds or whatever, they'll do that once. Is that person still going to be putting in 100% effort, like literally 100%, about to pass out at the end of that 30 seconds effort 6 weeks down the line? Probably not. I certainly fucking wouldn't. That sounds awful. And so my issue with the HIIT training thing is that it seems to work in theory, but I've never seen anyone actually do it that way. And beside the point, you need a certain level of fitness to be able to even do that. And so the type of person that would theoretically benefit from HIIT training, the relatively untrained person, the older person who wants to maintain muscle mass and bone density and stuff, HIIT could theoretically do that if you can push yourself that hard. But most people can't. And that's not like a slight on you. As I say, I couldn't do it. And so for most folks, I would say if you want the theorized benefits of HIIT training, the cardiovascular benefits, the muscle and the bone benefits, you'd be better off just doing resistance training and a little bit of zone 2. It's going to take you a little bit more time, granted, but it's going to be actually possible. And I think anyone who's telling the general population that they're able to do HIIT training, I think what they're doing is they're selling people MIT training, so medium intensity interval training, and just calling it. It's the same as when people for a long while were doing Tabata training. So Tabata training, or the Tabata protocol, was this like thing, came out of Japan, and it was like you do 20 seconds effort, 10 seconds rest, 8 rounds, and that takes 4 minutes. And so people were saying, oh, you can do 4 minutes exercise, and if you do 4 minutes exercise twice a week, it's incredible. And it's like, yeah, but have you seen a person do Tabata training you're going to throw up at the end. Most people are doing like a 20-second sprint and then 10-second rest. That sprint's at like 85, 90% intensity. And by the end of it, they're just like a bit tired. And it's like, I'm sorry, I know that was hard. I know you put the effort in. And Jesus, it's better than nothing. But that's not HIIT training. You haven't done it to the intensity that is required. Most people won't do it the intensity that's required. So I'd recommend that you just do something else.
And intensity. Strength training in itself is high intensity, and you're doing it in intervals. Like each set takes about 40 seconds to a minute in itself. So that in itself is yourself doing high intensity, resting, and repeating that effort. Same thing.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more interesting doing it that way. Now, if you wanted to do HIIT, that is a particular conditioning protocol for people that actually need to be conditioned in that sense. Like, for example, runners that are practicing certain bouts of effort to become better at that thing, which is running, or biking if they do it on the bike. Like specific protocols for specific results. And I think one of the biggest things that people get hyped up about is the fact that it quote unquote burns more calories because the afterburn. Well, hey, guess what else does that? Resistance training. And regardless of whether it's resistance training or HIIT, the EPOC, the post-metabolic burn, isn't actually as great as you think. It's like 50 calories, maybe 100, 50 more likely for most people. And then there's that whole, like, you didn't actually burn calories for that whole thing because in that period of time, there's the rest periods where you're not doing work. So it's just like, what is the actual, like, what results do you want to get from it? And I would argue that you thinking that HIIT is going to give you the toned, tight, lean body is missing the mark. What gets you that is building muscle. HIIT and any form of cardio, the stair mill included, does not build muscle. I don't care if you feel a burn in your quads. I don't care if your ass is on fire. It's not building any muscle.
Yeah, I mean, it will build a baseline of muscle. Let's be honest, it will, but that baseline isn't very high. Like, you'll build, if you do nothing, if you've never exercised before, if you go out and do running, you'll build muscle in your legs a little bit, but you're not going to get legs that most people would describe as muscular. You will build a little bit of muscle. And again, if you can run and you can't do anything else because you don't have access to a gym, you can't afford it or whatever, that's better than nothing. That will always be better than nothing. And if you can do HIIT training on top of that, that's probably better than just running. But if you've got the option to do anything else, you're probably better off doing anything else.
Exactly.
What Ruby says there about the EPOC as well, so the excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, the calories that you burn after training. So you'll see HIIT classes sold as like, oh, do this exercise for 20 minutes and then you burn more calories for 24 hours. As Ruby says, you do, but the calorie expenditure increase is like minuscule. You're talking like 10 calories an hour, which is like a couple hundred calories across the course of a day. It's not nothing. But you get that from lifting weights too. You'll burn fewer calories during the class than you would do during a comparable amount of regular exercise. Like, so if you just go for a run for 40 minutes, which most people can do, you'll burn more calories than you would do if you did a HIIT class for 10 minutes. Because you're not doing HIIT for longer than 10 minutes. If you are, we're going back to it's not the correct intensity anymore thing. And then we factor in the post-exercise thing. Yeah, it'll probably match up-ish. But after 1 to 2 months, evidence suggests that exercise consumption after the exercise goes away because you get fitter now. So you don't do the whole EPOC thing anymore to a greater extent. And so once you get fit, that doesn't work anymore. So now what? And so, yeah, like, I'm not shitting on HIIT. If you want to do HIIT, if you enjoy HIIT, that's fine. But for most people, it's not the best option.
Yeah, I just thought of a great analogy to end this actual topic. And that's, if you think about weight training, you're investing money in the short term to get greater dividends in the longer term. You're going to have not only a better looking body, a more muscular body, because you need strength training to do that. You can eat all the protein in the world. You can feed yourself into a surplus, but without the weight training as a sufficient stimulus, you're not going to get the gains you want. But then if you look at cardio and HIIT training, that is just spending your cash. Like, you're not investing, you're spending the cash. And for most women that do this, there are so many that are underfueling as it is. They're under eating. So many women under eat protein. So many are fearful of carbs, where if you think of HIIT training and cardio type of stuff, you're going to be relying on that fast fuel source, which is your carbs. So if you're trying to add in more and more of this while you've been chronically dieting, underfueling, underfeeding, it's not using your cash anymore. You're actually using your credit card, and you're going to have to pay more back later. And that usually comes in terms of you're going to gain weight from doing it because you just ate into your reserves. Now your body's going to be craving more and more food. Why do you think you have a gremlin in the pantry that raids it every night? I don't think it's a ghost. So, number 2, let's talk about one of the things I'm most passionate about, and that's keeping things the same for a longer period of time. I think talking about the HIIT training as well, where how Tom mentioned that a lot of people just do it and do a hard effort, but they're not actually going beyond that discomfort. And the same thing happens in training, where people just go until it's hard, not until they're actually pushing close to, if not failure. And sometimes I find with one of my girls, like I found this with one of my girls, it was actually a really good thing I tried this experiment where we had a program the exact same for 16 weeks, because I think it was on the 11th week, she started lifting weights she's never lifted before. And she goes to me, I was going to tell you that I'm due for a new program like very soon, because she was actually really enjoying doing the program that I gave her. And then she goes, I'm lifting the heaviest I've ever lifted on a deadlift. I'm like, do you think it's because you now trust yourself to do that very lift over and over again and you can probably do more next week? And she's like, it actually didn't feel that hard. And we hold ourselves back a lot. Like, you don't just want to go into discomfort. And I recognize as well, people that have a type A personality, if they feel like something's hard, they feel like they're just going to do 2 sets. They can't do another third set of that weight. Why not drop the weight and see what you can do with that? Maybe you'll realize that you actually could do the third set. Like, just like you can increase the weight on the third set, you can also decrease it. There's no law or rule saying that things have to be the same all of the time. And in fact, you're holding yourself back. You can even drop the weight the following week if you don't feel like you're strong enough to do that, versus skipping a session. Like, as soon as you break past the barrier once and then a second time, you're starting to show yourself that you can do it. And this myth is, I guess, perpetuated by people that come up with these programs and these new training apps that want to keep you bought into the app, because otherwise what's the whole point paying for it? So they change the program every 4 weeks. And 4 weeks is not enough to get the stimulus you need from a lot of the weights. Like, okay, probably by week 4, you're starting to realize that progress on the lifts isn't as fast anymore. Maybe by week 6, you're fighting for every rep. And maybe then by week 7, you're actually starting to put a great dent into building muscle, because not only do you have to fight for even an extra rep, but you're fighting to even use the same weight because your body wants to drop it, but you're fighting to push and push it. And it's that grit, that's where muscle is built, where you're literally forcing yourself for change. It's not, I'm not getting sore anymore, I'm not increasing the weights anymore, this isn't working. No, that is in fact when it is working the most. The reason we changed the programs is because novelty. Like, we get bored if we do things for longer than 8 weeks, 12 weeks sometimes. But regardless of how often you change it, which I usually do every 8 weeks, I think Tom does it for longer, but every 8 weeks, I now keep, because I've learnt my lesson, and it usually was just to like appease other people, but now it's just like, no, I keep most of the shit the same, but I change up small variables here and there. Keep some main lifts the exact same, change the variables of most of the other stuff, and then completely change some accessories. Because the accessories, you can change the handles of something. You can do things with the cables instead of the dumbbells. Same thing. But you want to have something that you're always using as your like lighthouse to improve.
Yeah, I do essentially exactly the same thing. Like, your needs don't change that much periodically. So it's not the case that if you've been doing a program for 12 weeks that you need a completely new program, because your needs aren't different, right? So what I will tend to do is I'll have clients who are on the same program for years, literally years, and all will change is their main movements, the main things that they're working on will change around the rep and set schemes. Sometimes a bench press might become a close grip bench press. Sometimes a deadlift might become a pause deadlift. But the fundamental like squat, bench, deadlift, and overhead press will stay in. And then obviously that changes depending on the client. Not everyone's doing those lifts, but you get the point. Then we've got accessories. Accessories will change somewhat infrequently. So a barbell row might become a pendlay row, but you're always going to be doing some kind of barbell row. You're always going to be doing some kind of pull-up. You're always going to be doing some kind of leg press or hack squat or belt squat or something like that. And those will change, vary around. I'll probably change one of them every other week. So across 4 sessions, you'll change one major accessory every few weeks just to keep it interesting. Because at the end of the day, if you're pulling a thing horizontally against gravity, your body doesn't know if that's a barbell or a dumbbell. It doesn't know if it's a barbell, a dumbbell, or a cable. So it doesn't really matter that much. And then accessories, I will generally just put something like bicep movement of choice. Like you could literally change your bicep movement every week and it wouldn't matter. So when it comes to the variety, get your variety from moving accessories around, get your variety from moving like secondary movements around occasionally, but those main movements, they'll stay in for ages. And I think the only reason why you would want to do a new program, like a completely new program, every here and there, it would be because you're either just training very generally and you want to try and improve a whole bunch of different things. So I worked with a CrossFitter. He needed to work on endurance training and gymnastics and Olympic lifting and powerlifting and running and swimming and cycling. And it's like, yeah, we're not going to do all of that in 4 days, dude. Like we're going to have to prioritize this across the course of the year.
That part right there is important. Can you
generally it doesn't need to happen. So
no, I want you to talk about that part more, because that part's really important in that you can't specialize in everything and improve everything all at once.
You can't specialize in it. I do think if something's important, it should be in all the time. So if, for instance, so that client.
No, all at once.
So that client needed to be good at swimming. So swimming was always in his program. There'd be just sometimes when we would prioritize it and sometimes where we would de-emphasize it. I'm really hesitant for working with someone who, like, say you're working with a triathlete. I'll just do that because it's a little bit easier. Triathletes need to be good at cycling, swimming, and running. And they also need to do some resistance training. I know that historically, the way a lot of triathletes would train is they would can off a lot of their like strength work coming up to competitions. I don't do that because why would I want to detrain somebody? If someone wants to run and also lift weights, I'm not going to take the running out for like some of the year because that's stupid. That's just going to detrain them in their running and they're going to have to learn how to run again. So yeah, I do think that if something's important, it should be in all the time. It's the same as how so a really common thing is to have strength blocks and hypertrophy blocks. And I used to program like that as well. I don't anymore think that makes sense. And so I don't tend to program that way anymore, because at the end of the day, if a person is going to be gaining strength, they need to build more muscle. And if a person's wanting to build more muscle, they're going to have to get strong. And so if we're to say that hypertrophy is important to this individual, why would they spend some of the year not developing hypertrophy? And if we're to say that top end strength is important for this person, why would they ever spend part of the year not doing any like heavy RP9 singles, doubles, and triples? Like both of those can be in all the time. I think the big wave of like daily undulating periodization where people were doing like super heavy squats on a Monday and lighter squats on a Thursday, like I think that should have taught people something. And so yeah, I don't do strength and hypertrophy blocks anymore because if both of those are important, they should be in all the time.
That's funny because I used to do the same thing as well. Whereas, yeah, okay, cool, I'm not going to put in massive strength stuff, and especially with a lot of sets if hypertrophy is the goal, because like we said on the last podcast, it is really fucking taxing. Meaning it's going to take out most of your session of where you could be putting in a lot more exercises to improve on other things. So you really need to know the trade-offs before. This is why it's good to have a coach. Honestly, hire yourself a coach. There's Tom there. There's me here. Hire one of us or get someone who is kind of into the nuances like us, because then you'll know that you're onto a good one. But I just wanted to tie a bow on that part of you can't specialize in everything all of the time. Like you can't say, I want to improve my shoulders, I want to improve my arms, I want to improve my butt, I want to improve my back, I want to improve my chest. It's like you only have room for so much in your program because you need to recover. You only grow from what you recover from.
Yeah. So, I mean, early in your journey, yeah, I can absolutely do that, obviously.
Exactly.
But as a person gets a little bit more advanced, yeah, it might be the case that you need to run a shoulder optimization program. Like me personally, at the minute, so I train squat, bench, deadlift year round. We have like a small, like within gym deadlift competition in about 3 weeks. I'm massively prioritizing deadlifting, but that doesn't mean I'm not squatting heavy. It's just now my deadlift is happening heavy twice a week. And after that, I'm doing relatively light paused back squats. And the other day I do front squats. So I'm still doing the movement. It's not like removed from my program. It's just de-emphasized. And as Ruby says, like if you want to particularly focus on your legs, that doesn't mean don't train your back. It just might mean that you put more of your weekly volume leg wise.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really important there. Now, those were the longer ones that we're done with. Now we have some shorter ones, and I started laughing a little bit through the other one because I have written down booty bands don't grow your booty, and for the third time in my newsfeed, I'm seeing this. This is definitely anti-wankery material, but I'm seeing this like pegging of this person. I don't know whether you saw it, but it looks like someone's pegging in the air. I have to send it to you. She's like on her knees. Mm-hmm. let me set the scene. She's on her knees. She has a contraption on her groin area. It's kind of like weight training.
She's strapped. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, we are. She's strapped down. She's got weight on her, and it's like gym BDSM. Like I don't understand. And the great part of this is that Brett Contreras is the one that has been putting it out there. And
of course,
what actually grows your booty, what grows your abs, what grows all these different things is the same thing that grows every other muscle. It's mostly training the lengthened ranges. Having a little bit of shortened ranges because it's less taxing and it kind of works to have both there. But thrusting the air with some contraption on your groin is only going to get you better at doing BDSM, not at growing your booty. And I don't think that is the intention behind anyone listening to this podcast. You want, like, you're doing things for gains, you want to be effective. But aside from doing it stupidly, something that a lot of people do in themselves, it's like doing the half squats. It's pretty much, you know, the people that do the half squats on the Smith machine, where they have like the Smith machine. I have to send you the thing, but I'm logged out of Instagram. But if you go on to, what's his face did it? Jack Hallows showed it, and he did like a funny reel on it, but also Dr. Soko put it up on his Instagram. I'll have to send it to you from my phone later, but it's just hilarious. But people do like these half squat variations where they're on their knees under a Smith squat and they're kneeling, and then they like thrust up, you know, where people are kneeling like this. You can look at me now so I can show you. So they're kneeling, and then they thrust up like that, and then they kneel down and then they thrust up like that.
Oh yeah, kneeling head thrusts. Yeah.
So it's like doing that, but with a contraption on the groin. And apparently it's to fix your deadlift lockout. And it's like, to fix your deadlift lockout, do like, if you wanted to cut the range of motion, do block pulls or rack pulls. But if you wanted to fix your deadlift lockout, in my books, do pause deadlifts, because you're fatiguing yourself before the end of the thrust. Or do deficit deadlifts. Like, that is not a way to do it, and that's not a way to grow your booty. Booty bands around your knees when you're doing hip thrusts. If anything, that is going to take away from you growing your booty, because it's just going to make it harder for you to load your squat, your hip thrust, whatever you're doing with the booty band around your knee is just making it harder for you to load. But like I mentioned in my podcast with Gareth, if you're listening to this episode and you rather a direct link there, DM me and I'll send you there. But the booty band serves a purpose, but not the one that you think. There are a lot of people that need to have the cue to push their knees out. So it serves a band-aid until you learn that. But then there comes a point where it's just making it harder for you to load the lift. Therefore, you're not getting the best out of the lift.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been known for quite a long time that a lot of the glute workouts that you see on Instagram, they're literally just thirst traps. Like, these are things that make your ass look good, at the time of doing it. These are not things that will actually build your glutes. What you need to do in order to build your glutes is you need to utilize progressive overload in a couple different ways. You need to do some hip extension, and you can probably do some hip abduction. And those two things you can load, and you can definitely use bands when you're doing that. But super high rep, like monster walks and like half squat sideways lunges and stuff with bands, they'll give you a big glute pump. But if you just sort of flex your bicep over and over again, that's going to give you a good bicep pump. It's not going to give you a bigger bicep. What you need to do is get stronger on curls. So yeah, like all of these things have their place. And I mean, shit, if you want to do a couple of like monster walks before you do your squats, if that makes your squat feel better, have at it, like go for it. But yeah, we need to recognize that a lot of glute work that you see on Instagram is a thirst trap, and that's probably not the way that you need to build your glutes.
And hey, that's because of the very thing we just spoke about before. Keeping shit same for longer periods of time and keeping the same bare basics is literally what builds the muscle, but that isn't sexy for Instagram. So let's just come up with a bunch of other exercises. And like you said, by the way, check your phone. Like you said, with like, yeah, that like getting stronger with the bicep curls. I always keep the same exercises there. And that's the thing with biceps. That's the thing with like triceps and stuff like that, where it is really hard to get stronger in those movements because they're such small muscles. So when you do, it's really freaking exciting. And there is no doubt that you have built muscle because you just got stronger and you fought for it every single week. And I guess this kind of also, we can talk about machines in general and the Smith machine myth. Like I used to be really against the Smith machine. I don't know why. I think it's just, this is the thing with social media. This is the thing with everything. Like you hear it parroted around and all of a sudden it becomes your truth and it's the only truth. And that's the way I was. Like I heard so many people saying, I'm like, oh, don't Smith on the squat machine, don't squat on the Smith machine and all this other stuff. Whereas now it's like, it's one of my favorite machines. I love the Smith machine. It provides stability. It allows you to overload it. And it allows you to train yourself to failure without fearing anything really going too wrong there. And that's the same with any other machine. Functional training, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, functional training is broadly bullshit. Like, broadly. I do think there's something to be said about training in a slightly different way than a lot of people do to improve overall daily motion and like overall daily mobility. Like I do think there's something to that. Like I think if you go to the gym and you only use machines, or you go to the gym and you only, so when we talk about exercise and shit, there are various different planes through which you can move. And if you're doing stuff where you've got both your feet on the ground, facing forwards, there's no twisting, there's no turning, that's called the sagittal plane. Okay. Most people train basically exclusively in the sagittal plane. You'll squat, you'll deadlift, you'll overhead press, you'll do bicep curls. You might lunge, which is slightly not sagittal plane, but you'll lunge. You'll do leg presses, you'll do lateral raises, frontal raises. Like all of this is like 2 feet on the ground, no twisting, no turning, no bending. And I do think that that is not good. Most of the people I know who've had like back injuries, they get those back injuries when they like pick up a spoon off the floor, or they get out of a car, or you'll find someone who's generally really strong and they spend 2 hours digging a hole in the garden and they're absolutely fucking broken because they can't move out of the sagittal plane. And I do think there's some benefit to being able to do that. But generally speaking, the term functional is just, it's just like an elitist term that I think a lot of people throw around because they don't have respect for bodybuilders, because in a lot of cases, a lot of bodybuilders are stronger than them and they just use machines, and people who can deadlift 120 kilos after 8 years of hard training need to feel better about themselves. And I just think, yeah, like train for the sport that you have, include a little bit of bending and you'll be quite functional. And I don't really have a great deal else to say about that, other than to say I also, and I think a lot of people did this, so I fell into the trap a long time ago of hating on the Smith machine. A lot of people did it and it's because I was early in the industry and that made sense to me. And I'm also mature enough to admit that there was a bit of elitism in there. I would go, well, I'm benching with a barbell, I can squat with a barbell, and so therefore I'm better than you. I don't need to have the training wheels on and use a Smith machine. And that's all it was. It was ego and elitism. There's fuck all wrong with the Smith machine. I still don't program with it a lot, just because I find that people, when they use barbells and such, can get a little bit more variety in the training movements they can use. Also, just from a practical perspective, Smith machines tend to be really busy in gyms and you can't get on them. But yeah, I have clients who do hack squats on Smith machines. I think Smith machines can be really good for single leg work. So like rear foot elevated split squats and shit on the Smith machine, you get all of the activation and such that you get from a regular rear foot elevated split squat. You don't have to struggle with balance. I've seen people do hip thrusts on them. Can't vouch for that myself, but it seems to be quite effective. Like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with the Smith machine. I don't personally use it. I don't like it. It feels restrictive to me, but that's my opinion, and I'm now mature enough to recognize that that's what it is, rather than some like general judgment of a piece of equipment. The Smith machine can be really, really useful. I've got one client doing side bends on it, and she raves about that. So yeah, all sorts you can do with it.
I actually really like that as an ending point to this, because most of the shit you see, most of the myths you see are exactly what Tom and I just described there. Either people are new to the industry and then they just hold whatever they initially believe is gospel because they're so closed-minded and they don't actually understand the concept of learning things more or admitting to their wrongs. And as soon as they hold themselves on something, they feel too ashamed to change that perspective. Or the fact that N=1, I like it this way, it's better for me. This is usually not trainers. This is usually people who are actually in Facebook groups and on Instagram saying, it worked for me. This is the way it is. And that's the way that I see HIIT training being perpetrated. That's the way that I see sprints and the whole high reps, little rest, blah, blah, blah works for me, because doing longer rests didn't work for me. And it's like, work for you in what way? The fact that you didn't feel your heart rate jacking up through the roof? Like, it is really hard to break apart these fallacies when it's backed up by so many people who feel something as effective because it feels hard. And I think that's a great way to tie this up, because I was just about to say, the longer the workout or the harder the workout feels does not make it more effective. It just makes that workout hard from however you had it. It could actually be the least effective workout there is, because you just did junk volume and you didn't do much other than booty pumps and sweat your ass off. Like, it's knowing exactly what it is you want to get out of that session and having the session structured for that. But also, you're not going to get results from things that you do not recover from, that you do not adequately fuel. And if you aren't eating enough protein, I would argue that you're going to have a really hard time seeing the results you want with that as well. Anything else you want to tie a bow with?
Nothing else. I think that's a very nice way to end it, to be fair.
I hope you all enjoyed this, and we will see you next week. Bye.